Okay, so since Redesign Your Thinking, my startup company is a corporate loophole, if you would, for justice in a corrupt government system. The thing I wanted to bring forward right now is this corrupt lawyer guild that's been in Washington, D.C. since 1997, which has been allowing the federal nonprofits, the 501c3 nonprofits, not the C4, the C3 nonprofits, to engage in the propaganda campaigns on these federal stages that invite politicians in order to convince and influence voters on how they should vote by calling certain people within America anti-Americans. And so it doesn't take a genius to realize that, if they're talking about liberals, they're talking about Democrats. And so this idea of association by recognition is easy to apply because, if they're talking about liberals, they're going to be talking about Democrats. And so you have these 501c3 nonprofits who are using their federal stages that are supported by donors who then get tax breaks by the government for those donations. They're tax exemption donations. And they're able to have these political campaigns happening inside colleges and inside schools and inside churches and inside religious institutions that are tax exempt and not paying into a tax system and directly influencing how the taxes are used in America for the people who are actually paying into a tax system. And so one of the things I want to bring forward is the James Madison Center of Free Speech, which is in Washington, D.C., set up by Betsy DeVos, the Eric Prince's sister, and McConnell in 1997. And they have been a corrupt lawyer guild that has been shielding these federal 501c3s from IRS and FEC jurisdiction, any kind of penalties. And if you recall, back in 2010, the former IRS attorney, Michelle Bachmann, who went after the IRS agent who was blocking her federal nonprofits, went after her with a smear campaign that had a Russian GRU style to it, used her other guilds in order to create this public smear campaign to drive this agent out of her position with just this mental harassment and these lies, while also calling Obama a Muslim and therefore anti-American, as though America was Russia and we kick people out of the country for the religious beliefs they have. We have had this system of people coming in and manipulating the system at a legal judicial level. These corrupt lawyers, such as Michelle Bachmann, former IRS attorney, who has then been able to create a Tea Party guild out of that, a Tea Party faction for the Coach Network, which told Americans that we should no longer benefit from our taxes and that we should give corporations more power. Do you know how stupid it is to give corporations so much power of a government? When corporations are not designed to last, they get acquired, they get bankrupt, they get merged. If you have a foreign government, state-owned enterprise that ends up monopolizing an industry and merging or acquiring a corporation here in the United States that we gave all this power to, a foreign government such as Russia or China can conquer the United States of America through acquisitions. Not war, not military. They can control our corporations who control our government. That is how dumb it is to give corporations that much power. Corporations aren't designed to last. Sears is one of the oldest retail establishments that was back in the Industrial Revolution. And they just now got screwed over by investors who promised that they were going to save them and did exactly what happened to the factory I worked for, where they ended up liquidating their assets, and just basically letting them go to pot while they then was able to then sell it off for the equity. And so this idea of giving corporations so much power while investors are stealing companies and not being held accountable to the security fraud laws here in the United States is the dumbest thing any congressperson could ever put forward and even claim that it had anything to do with the Founding Fathers. And all of this is coming from this lawyer guild who has allowed these nonprofits to have these propaganda factories, basically, who exploit students for free labor or cheap labor in order to do it. It tells them that they're actually patriotic in doing this. And they're able to manipulate the system. They're able to manipulate people's minds. They're lying to the people straight out. They're telling them that the Federalist Papers, they're pulling the anti-Federalist arguments and saying that's Federalist. We have been lied to for 70 years, but this 1997 is the cream of the crop because this is what allowed them to come in and start going after the schools because they're right there in the colleges, and these federal 501c3s are going after the professors with these stupid professor watch sites. Have you seen it? ProfessorWatchlist.org of Charlie Kirk. Do you know who Charlie Kirk is? He's the son of the project manager architect of Trump Towers. He is an actor. He has done nothing with his life. He's a college dropout. He has nothing more than a high school degree. And he has the audacity to tell people with master's and PhD degrees that they are indoctrinating the kids because, lo and behold, they don't want to admit that in kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, that stupid high-stake testing system, which removed the ability of students to critically think and analytically think because they turned education into regurgitation of data. That's testing that's required levels, three levels above what they can do, so that students that failed those tests became money makers. They became cash cows for corporations. But these 501c3s that have the audacity to try to pull that crap with college professors who are not only experts in their field from actually working in their field, but have masters and PhD.
Amen.
Hi. That they would do that, and they get away with it because we have those corrupt lawyer guilds who are protecting them and suing everybody at a drop of the hat, even though it's against their attorney code to have frivolous lawsuits. If they have these frivolous lawsuits, they can lose their attorney license, and yet that's not being upheld. None of the attorney code, the Code of Professional Conduct and Ethical Behavior, is being upheld here in the United States. And so we're getting away with these propaganda clubs that are manipulating our law systems, are stacking our courts, are stacking our laws, are manipulating the Constitution and lying the whole time and getting away with it. But that 501c3, the James Madison Center of Free Speech, is vulnerable to tax evasion investigations because they are a federal nonprofit. And if we recall, tax evasion investigations are so powerful here in the United States, they get rid of the mafia. If you recall Al Capone from Chicago. And so Federalist 10 becomes the thing that shows that this James Madison Center of Free Speech that only protects basically the religious groups from any kind of oversight of IRS and FEC rules. Here you go. You can have that.
Thanks.
Is basically a fraud. And so here it goes. In Federalist 10, he says, either the existence of the same passion or interest in a majority at the same time must be prevented, or the majority having such coexistent passion or interest must be rendered by their number and local situation unable to concert and carry into effect schemes of oppression. Well, that James Madison Center of Free Speech allowed those schemes of oppression to happen by stacking the judicial system in such a way that it shields anybody who has access to those lawyers, who can go after the U.S. press, who can go after the what else are they going after? Oh, cyber tech. It's all algorithms on Twitter and Facebook, and so they're kind of they've taken their algorithms so that they remove access to those foreign troll factories. They have certain algorithms that they're looking for. They've got certain patterns that they're looking for. That if you violate, if your behavior patterns or your words match those patterns, you're going to get pinged. And so these lawyers are making it into some kind of emotional case as though there's bias there, but it's really a system that's trying to shut out the Russian trolls because they're working with the Digital Forensic Research Lab in order to, and the digital Sherlocks, in order to shut down those Russian troll factories that's been happening. Twitter and Facebook have been really big, have been working with the Digital Forensic Research Lab in that pursuit. And yet we have even lawyers in Congress who will go after YouTube, will go after Twitter, who will go after Facebook, and claim that they are prejudiced towards the conservatives because they're biased and they only support liberals. They turn everything into this political idea in order to hide the fact that a lot of criminal activity is happening. And so if the impulse and the opportunity suffice to coincide, we well know that neither moral nor religious motives can be relied on as an adequate control. And they are not found to be such on the injustice and violence of individuals and lose their efficiency in proportion to the numbers combined together, that is, in proportion as their efficiency becomes needful. That's James Madison right there. Federalist 10 is all about factions and how he's against them and how he gives us these solutions that tells us this is how you're supposed to prevent them from happening. And his name is being used at a James Madison Center of Free Speech, a federal 501c3, which is a socialist constructive government. 501c3, federal 501c3s were created by that FDR New Deal where, we just got over the Great Depression. And so they were calling on the makers in order to boost pull the nation up by its bootstraps. And so they were going to give these makers and these people who had the ability to do that access to government money. And that's where that federal 501c3 came from, that nonprofit. It is a socialist system where government helps people. Everything that they claim to be against, and yet they say they want to be capitalist and using a socialist system for their propaganda campaigns. How do you justify the hypocrisy of that? I can't understand that. Real capitalists don't take government handouts. So how can you be a capitalist in using a nonprofit stage in order to push down socialism and these socialist programs when the federal 501c3 nonprofit is a socialist program? It's a lot of hypocrisy going on. You can use the Federalist Papers, the Madison letters that are in there to take down the James Madison Center of Free Speech and then bring them up for tax evasion investigations. And then we start seeing all the federal 501c3s that have been protected from the IRS that says you're not allowed to engage in any biased political activity. And if you do, you're going to be stripped of your 501c3 status. We'll see that happening, back taxes, and maybe the back taxes might go into fixing our U.S. Treasury and making us back in the green or black or whatever it is. Okay.